Hey, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to be talking about source code and what that is. Source code refers to human readable instructions or programming statements that make up computer programs or software applications. It is written in a programming language and serves as foundation for the software. Programmers write source codes to create and instruct computers to perform specific tasks or functions. Source code typically consists of series of text-based instructions, commands, and documents that describes how a program works. Programmers write and edit source code using editors or integrated development environments. Once the source code is written, it needs to be translated into machine code using compiler or interpreter to run on a computer. So depending on how it's been written, right? So depending on, for example, if the source codes can be written in different ways, and there's one so many ways how you can write down the code, as well as what kind of software they're gonna take this code and what the program gonna do with that code. They're gonna try to simplify the code. They're gonna try to reduce the space, how much the code is taking, depending what you wanna do, depending on the size, what the code is gonna be used for. So many different applications, but either way, that's very fundamental. Source code is very fundamental. Myself, it's good to brush it off, just understand it a little bit better. Perhaps it's something that I'm currently working on, as well as perhaps bringing others up to speed of some of the applications of the source code. If we were to take a look at source code and some of its components, it would begin with programming language, whichever you believe might be the best to work on yourself, or perhaps write down the code or work with a particular programming language. Myself, I'm biased, and so based on my own personal research, a lot of people might go with Python. There's applications that would go with Java. Myself, I might pick C++, just to name a few, as well as JavaScript, something most likely I'm going to be working later on next week. But there are so many different languages to work with. Each language has its syn syntax and rules for writing code. So to do your own research, to understand what the differences between those languages. If we're working here to make sure that all the people will receive universal basic income, uh, for some of us up there, we need to do a lot of work to make sure that some of the people in government will do what they do best, to make sure what they to do the best with our tax-paying money to allocate those to other people, right? So we need to work on this. Some of us need to work on that code, make sure that we have all the necessary systems in place. If anything, and the takeaways from this video would be perhaps where to begin building those systems, right? So I covered that in the course already, but let's take a look at some of the perhaps creative way of thinking, how we can solve some of those problems out there. Perhaps learning, I'm constantly learning, improving, and I would definitely here to recommend others to do the same. Even though some of the tasks might be daunting, you need to start somewhere and slowly over time improve, I guess, and work from there. Text-based instructions. Some codes consist of text-based instructions that define how programs should function. These instructions are written using combination of keywords, variables, functions, and control structures. Comments are a crucial part of source code. They are executed by the computer and serve as notes and explanation for programmers to understand the code. Comments are typically preceded by symbols. Without going too much into detail, there's some examples how it can potentially work as a comments, as well as variables, as well as functions, and what would be combination of components that would be full picture of the source code. Alright, so that would be control structures as well as documentation. A couple more that would be version control as built-in compilation. So that would be full structure of the source code. Let's take a look at the brief history and when it has started and overall progress of the source code. That would be machine code in 1940s, 1950s. Early computers were programmed directly into machine code, which consists of binary instructions that the computer's hardware could execute. Written programs in machine code was extremely tedious and error prone as programmers had to work with raw binary value, which is interesting. 1940s, how much space some of the computers would take. And when we are talking about having bugs in the system, they actually meant to have bugs in the system, not the bugs in the overall software that they were using. There is a lot of stamps on the time frame. It's very hard to crank this information and make it interesting, even myself, not to fall asleep. But I'll do my best. Assembly language. Assembly language was introduced as a low-level programming language that used mnemonic codes to represent machine instructions. Uh, Fortran, 1957, Fortran, short for Formula Translation, was one of the earliest high-level programming languages. Okay, let's move along. There's a lot of those. COBOL. COBOL is a common business-oriented language, which is great. Lisp, 1958. There's a lot of information when everyone's bored. Lisp, short for List Processing, was one of the earlier programming languages designed for artificial intelligence research. It is introduced components like symbolic expressions and garbage collection. Interesting. I'm trying to cover that within my next book. Perhaps worth mentioning. I'll be releasing that perhaps faster than it's listed online, but I will see. But overall, this particular area I would like to cover within my next book. C, 1972, the C programming language developed by a couple of people that did a lot of great things, but I'm not entirely sure if that information is accurate. C was designed to be portable and efficient, and it influenced many subsequent programming languages. Structural programming language that were in 1970s. The 1970s saw emergence of structured programming paradigms, emphasizing the use of structured control flow constructors like loops and conditions. This made source code more organized and maintainable. Overall, it's when we're looking at currently when I'm looking at the time frame and some of the progressions made, and some of these areas highlighted within time frames and how fast high tech level had made changes to business world. Perhaps for people out there who can only imagine how fast internet and all the other perhaps opportunities out there have spread with AI currently changing in the business world as well. There are a lot of opportunities. If anything, let's take time to acknowledge history and get some improvements and some of the people up there. I'm not entirely sure if I'm doing justice, but I'm not entirely sure if this information is accurate, right? High-level language, 1980s, 1990s. During this period, a variety of high-level programming languages emerged, including C++, Java, and Python. These languages introduced features like object-oriented programming, platform independent, and simplicity. Open source movement, 1980s all the way to present. The open source software movement gained momentum in the 1980s, leading to a development of freely accessible and modifiable source code. Projects like there are many different projects. Let's give those. Foundation played a significant role in programming open source principles. Uh, Open source, accessible to everyone, perhaps worth covering within the next video, but either way, so some of the improvements that can potentially be made and some of the pros and cons for using some of those up there. Modern programming language, that would be 2000s all the way to present. Some of the improvements and some of the frameworks there. Most of the people within the world would know those languages like Ruby, JavaScript, Go, and Rust, some of those frameworks. Versions control and collaboration all the way from 2000s. Some of the platforms are there. Again, I don't want to promote those. But all the space continuously evolving with the more projects coming in and simplifying the process of use of languages to improve its source code. People out there who are interested in learning more, I would highly recommend to purchase this journal. In this journal, I'm looking to optimize your time. If you haven't yet done it, organizing your time 24 hours and making most of your time, as well as developing a habit that would last, and potentially you would take notice of the way how you spending your time, making most of your time. In this journal, I'm focusing on particular areas which I personally believe are very important for everyone. That would be dictionary and perhaps improving your understanding about finances, as well as motivation and constantly showing up and doing it what's required, right? So sticking to your habits and those habits that will last and would pay off in the long term. You can find this journal in the description below, as well as topic that has it. Throughout history, source code has played pivotal role in advancement of computer technology, software development practices, and democratization of programming. It remains a fundamental aspect of digital age, enabling creation of software that power the world. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.